This is day 1505. I will see. I'm getting a new system, so hopefully that'll clean up any kinks. But I'm going to see if I'm live now. Okay, so I'm coming on a little bit early today. Thank God. Um, but there's been a lot of developments, and it's a little bit shocking to me. But all the pieces are fitting together. And every day I think, okay, I guess that's it. I guess, all the pieces are there, except for the arrest to tie up all the loose ends. But but then the new day comes and more information comes out that is exposed, that needs to be investigated, that needs to be reported um, in conjunction in regards to our son's premeditated murder on Fort Bliss. And I think because there's so many actions going on behind the scenes and more people are coming forward, more and more information is coming forward so that all that information can be shared. And that's why the greater network, the greater scheming and collusion um, that really has harmed El Paso. And when you really think about it, and I've been going through some old pictures of El Paso. Of course, I was born at White Sands. I have lots of pictures. I even shared pictures when I was younger. We used to get cardboard and go out to the White Sands and use the cardboard as a sled and go down and sled down the White Sands of New Mexico. Um, of course, we lived on Fort Bliss and we lived on Shed Road, Fort Bliss. Um, and so I have a lot of history there. I'm trying to remember the apartments we lived in because at that time in the 70s and into the 80s, if if your sponsor, my dad, was deployed or he went to Korea for a year during that time, you could not live on base without your sponsor. So we had to move out to an apartment complex. Citadels. I think they were called the Citadels. Yeah, I remember. Um, so, yeah, so much information is coming out about what has happened to El Paso. I think uh, this is where my faith really comes in. All of this, um, understanding why we are doing this day in and day out for 1,505 days. Um, why, Richard was sent to Fort Bliss. We were kind of excited about it because we had this wonderful image in our head of our time and growing up in El Paso. Um, some warnings, um, but just great place, beautiful, beautiful mountain range, the Franklin Mountain. Um, we were excited, but something has gone wrong in El Paso, and we believe that I think El Pasoans have been held hostage to a very bad leadership Very, very, very bad leadership. A criminal leadership. Absolutely criminal leadership. And that's why you see a imposter, illegal chief medical examiner who El Pasoans are charged almost $450,000 a year for an imposter. Really rotten, really a rotten. He absolutely needs to be arrested. What he has done, and if we can't respect people after they have passed away and their bodies, their corpses, if we cannot respect corpses, oh, we're very sick. We're a very sick society. And so Mario Raskin Ortiz absolutely needs to be arrested for what he's done. For what he's done. Absolutely. And that means Veronica Escobar along with him and Bernal, right? Joanne Bernal, because they brought him in there in that position, the county attorney. Absolutely terrible situation. We believe that he handled Richard's remains. We know for a fact that he is the one that handled the Walmart mass shooting victims' remains, and it's a disgust. It's a total disgust. It cannot be tolerated. It cannot be allowed. Also, the very criminal leadership that has taken the El Pasoans hostage. And of course, it's affected Juarez, right? Of course it has. They're Siamese sister cities. I've always, that's how I was raised when living there. They're our sister city. Is the imposter, the usurper, Bill Hicks, that has trespassed into the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office, and with retired El Paso criminal law magistrate court judge, and she's not a judge, she's an imposter, Penny Hamilton. Penny Hamilton is now working for, an imposter working for an imposter working for a usurper, and an imposter. Well, it's like a trespass. It's a trespass position, right? And they're all working without authority. Without authority, it is absolutely just unbelievable. And we believe that Penny Hamilton has made rulings in Richard's case. And we inquired about that. And also with Judge Robert Shook in the JAG office. And it was very nerve-wracking for them. So, but the truth is going to come out. And it has in the last, it's been like 3 weeks we've been working on this. And Penny Hamilton is an imposter. She is a masquerading as a judge. Masquerading. She has no authority behind her. She has nothing to stand on. The Texas Constitution absolutely is totally against her. And in a court of law, she could not defend what she's done. She needs to be arrested. She's a criminal, along with Bill Hicks. So you have um, imposters, imposters, imposters. And of course, you have the imposter or uh, Bob Moore uh, being like media, and having his cake and eat it too, like 501c3, I'm going to be neutral, but he is not neutral. He's an attack dog. He's a political attack dog and not a journalist, a political attack dog. And he used an imposter, a criminal imposter, for a source, a convicted criminal imposter, Leilani Hart. And Leilani Hart is totally an imposter. um, and Major General Clem can absolutely contest to that, because she worked for him. She worked for him on Fort Bliss. And, so everything is uh, understandable. But let me explain it to you a little bit more. When this is the faith coming in. You're supposed to meditate, right? You're supposed to meditate. You're supposed to study. Study, pray, meditate, meaning think about things. Wrap your mind around things. That's why you need to study, because you need to understand it so you can think about it. So you can, and I do not claim to be any kind of doctoral degree, lawyer, um, great any kind of great politician or uh, economist. Um, no, I'm just a mom. I'm Richard's mom, homeschool mom, Rob's wife. I don't claim to have like this some like great knowledge. I do have great knowledge when it comes to Richard's case. Great knowledge. And and that makes, I think I'm going to get like some kind of paralegal degree out of this. Maybe like an investigator's degree out of it, because I sure have learned a lot. And I can tell you this, after looking into the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, it has become clear to me why they would allow such a travesty of unlawfulness happen. And what do I mean by that? In 2015, uh, El Paso County received countywide jurisdiction. And if you really look, when did the trafficking really begin? When did it really go crazy? It'd be interesting to compare the charts. Um, I mean, they were appointed before then. The the imposters were masquerading as judges before then, but they they were legal. They were legal. They could be appointed before 2015, but things changed when the county received countywide, that's the language, countywide jurisdiction, total jurisdiction, 100% jurisdiction. Before that, there was an area in the county that the judges had no authority over. And after um, they gained that little area and they received county-wide jurisdiction, the Texas Constitution kicked in, and they know this because Texas is a big state. It's a big state, and you know, anybody that's in law knows that there you need to make sure what jurisdiction you have. I mean, if you're a judge, you want to know what your jurisdiction is. You want to know what your legal rights are as a judge because you are affecting many lives, many, many lives. You can make or break someone. Absolutely. And so, as a judge, you need to be a citizen, right? Of the country. You need to have skin in the game. And you need to know what your jurisdiction is. You need to know what your legal authority is. And you absolutely need to sign your anti-bribery statement before you take the oath of office. So, and of course, Bill Hicks knew this. Even if you're appointed, you have to sign your anti-bribery statement. It's called the Statement of Officer before you take your oath of office because, the people of Texas has put that into the Texas Constitution because they want law enforcement officials to be on the up and up. They don't want them to have conflicts of interest. They don't want them to be corrupted. They don't want them to owe anybody a favor, right? And so that's why that's so important. And now we're finding out that they absolutely knew. There is not a doubt in my mind that in 2015, when the county received countywide jurisdiction, 100% of the county, that the leadership there knew, the law enforcement there knew, that the judge, and I don't think they were so many, now they're five, and they handled not about 90% of all cases, right? All these criminal cases. So, but they absolutely knew that they now had to be elected, that they had to have extra scrutiny, that they had to answer to the people, that they would affect their lives, that the people have oversight. But they didn't. They just didn't say anything, you see. They just kept on appointing. And it's unlawful. It's illegal. It's criminal. It's criminal. And you have to ask, why? Why? Well, if the leadership is as rotten as I believe it is, I mean, look at Veronica Escobar. She's so rotten. Sorry, she's so rotten. Bill Hicks is so rotten. You're talking about major power there, major sway over the spirit of the society, the schools, the celebrations, the what gets built, I mean, there's just so much that's part of it. And they're rotten. And Mario Raskin Ortiz, huge. And I don't even think a lot of El Pasoans even know. Because we're just not educated to know. I mean, I don't, the first thing I don't ask when I move into an area, the first thing is, well, okay, who is our medical examiner? But you know what? That's a really important question because whoever it is, they decide, they judge, it's a judge position on the cause and manner of death of whoever dies in your area. That's huge. That's huge because if someone's murdered and you have a corrupt medical examiner that's in the pocket or whatever, they could say, oh, they died of some flu. Oh, they died of this or that. No, the corruption, the fraud is so easy to fall into if you don't have oversight of who has that position. It's very, very important. And of course, they are a witness in the criminal cases, right? They're a witness in the criminal cases. And so if you have a real bad guy up to no good, but it's a family member of the medical examiner. The medical examiner can say, "Oh, that was a suicide. Oh, you got it all wrong. I did my forensics analysis," and they could absolutely lie and let the murderer go free, or the criminal go free. It is a very important position. And then, of course, the district attorney's position is so important because they determine what cases move forward. And, you got someone rotten in there like Bill Hicks. He can't even manage his own life. If you look at his CV, he can't even manage his own life. He was in so much trouble. He had to scheme and usurp that position for financial gain because his life was in shambles. He couldn't even pay rent. And his CV is messed up anyway. He should have never been considered for that kind of powerful position in that kind of powerful city. It's El Paso. El Paso deserves the best of the best. It is a military city, which is you have to have your thumb on that all the time because that's ripe for fraud and crime. That's known all through history. It's a border city, which is also ripe for crime. And it also is bordering another state, New Mexico. I can go on and on about why El Paso is so important and that the law enforcement has to be so scrutinized and that the El Pasoans should get the best of the best and the future would be so bright because there is so much potentiality for El Paso. And if you really want to know, you go back in history. I've been looking at old pictures of El Paso with Juarez. Beautiful Camino area like in California. Um, you know, just so much history with the mission, so much history with the culture. Um, the buildings, the buildings, which if you've been watching, I love architecture so much, and I don't buy it. I don't buy all the narrative for the buildings. Um, because they are just so intricate and so magnificent and so complicated and require so many resources and so much know how and so much will to even build them. So much love. A certain spirit has to go into building a building, building a bridge, building a mission, building a city. And you have to have forethought and you're putting forth your faith, what you believe in, what you think is beautiful, and then you have to get all those resources together and you have to get all the workers together. There has to be a huge unity in spirit to create. Uh, well, some things have been knocked down that should never have been knocked down, I don't think. But these magnificent buildings that are uh, in that city, in that borderland area. So I guess because I've always been skeptical of narratives, um, being a school teacher and going through some books that they wanted us to teach, and I'm like, really? Really? This is what the kids need? I need to teach dinosaurs 2 or 3 times a year? Why? Why? You know, uh, Crazy stuff. I thought that was insane. You just uh, question things is a good thing. And I question, why has beautiful El Paso and the surrounding area, why has it been put in the condition like it is in right now? Over 300,000 unaccompanied children. Now, if that doesn't cry, no matter how you feel what happened to them, but if that doesn't cry a problem, unaccompanied children from the ages of, however young they've come over. I always tell my friends who want to know, around 5, I guess, 5. I can't even imagine if they were younger than that. All the way to 17, right? This is what we're talking about. Um, Unaccompanied? What the heck? There's a problem. And now we're hearing that they were ripped from their families. They were forced over. They were trafficked into our country. And then they call them undocumented or something, or now, wanderers. I don't know. They put this terrible false narrative to sugarcoat it, that they don't have a family. They're so vulnerable. And now we're hearing that most of them are dead. And I know corroborated that it was terrible because our son Richard told us. It was really bad. He didn't say, "Oh, I'm in El Paso. It's magnificent. It's wonderful here." We talked about, of course, the mountains and um, really the lack of humidity um, being such a wonderful thing. Because in Ireland there's always a humidity problem. You always have to watch out for mildew and all of that. And he's like, "Oh, that's wonderful in El Paso." Um, but he told us it was very, very bad. It wasn't just very bad. It was very bad. It was so bad. It is so bad. I can't even talk about it. It's like Director of Emergency Services talking about the children there on Fort Bliss, unaccompanied. Um, he said he said it was so bad. He said it was so bad that he couldn't even talk about it. Couldn't talk out loud. It is very, very clear that there is a sexual cult, no respect for um, children, no respect for the dead. This is just something that's just not tolerable at all. And, even the Bible tells us if you want to be a good Christian, you take care of the orphans and uh, the widows, and you obey God's law word. That's it. The orphans and the widows and obeying God's law word. That's it. And if we don't um, heed Richard's warning, and absolutely say it is intolerable that they have Richard's partial remains, because they do, because we would never have gotten the declaration of death. You see, the insurance, the receipts, all of that. The paperwork, because we have it all, right? They have more, but we have enough. Says Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss. Now, we know that one of our prime suspects was a CID agent, Tavita Nusa, with access to secure areas on Fort Bliss. Areas that, you had to get a pass to go. But they're on Fort Bliss. And more information is coming out about that. More and more information is coming out about Leilani Hart and Clem Coward, the two-star general of 32nd ADCOM. And more information is coming out about Michael Xavier Garrett, the 4-star general, and his connection to El Paso. Of course, he's FORSCOM. Of course, he's connected to Fort Hood, which is Fort Cavazos right now, and Fort Bliss. He was absolutely the buck stops here when it comes to Vanessa Guillen, and of course with Richard. And he didn't want another Guillen situation. And he meddled. He tampered. Only like a 4-star general can. And, I haven't brought him up too much. But more and more information is coming out that gives us hard evidence of it. And so, the lying Leilani, the convicted criminal lying Leilani Hart, who's changed her name. She's changed her name now again. She's changed it several times. That's what they like to do. They like to be imposters. Because they're up to no good. And they're always trying to stay in the shadows. Stay in the shadows and do more harm, which, is really not, the right way to live life is do no harm, but they go in the shadows to do harm, to carry out with their fraud and their money laundering and their fake and fraudulent LLCs um, and their criminal activities. Because to do the criminal activities, to steal, cheat, whatever, and think about it, that area, you have hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children. You have Leilani's record of her FBI that we have shared with you through her confession, her notarization, the notary himself, of a history of abuse of children, sexual abuse of children, and also illegal purchasing of weapons, also child pornography, threats. And I have myself experience with them, with James Hart, with that group who have harassed us and threatened us. And for what? Think about this. They lied to us and said, Dallas Hart is a good boy. They falsified and fabricated evidence to try to convince us that, he of misleading information for us to believe a lie. And we're like, this is tampered information. This is not how you do it. I don't think they realize that Rob is a 30-year veteran with many, many deployments, many experiences under his belt, right? With many, many friends. And I don't think they understood that we have ties, both of us have ties to El Paso. And they're feeding us a bunch of lies. And then they say, oh, in this latest crazy crisis of a confession, crisis, it was just crazy. She goes, admits that Dallas was a platoon leader, but then also contradicts that he was a platoon leader. It's a real crazy writing to mess with followers, to try to frame a false narrative so people don't know. But look, if Dallas Hart's such a good boy, and he's not the prime suspect of murdering Richard, and he had nothing to do with Delta Battery 143, then why for 4 years are they bullying us, haunting us, instead of communicating with us like decent people? Why are they sending us evil pictures? Why are they, months and months of just the most vile, vulgar? Why are they lying to us about Tavita Nusa? Right? And Dallas lied to us about Tavita Nusa. Why are they lying to us about what was going on in the CID? They're up to no good. Leilani Hart was getting her mail at an adult entertainment area, and was absolutely had worked for and experienced much, much more with Clem Coward. And connections with these LLCs, and absolutely connections to Nadal Baim, who has connections all over the place. So, there's so much evidence. We have so much evidence. And you never stick around and bully and do all of the asymmetric warfare stuff if you're not even involved. You don't even want to be. Look, a lot of people don't even want to be involved in this case, because it's such a huge case, facing the death penalty, facing the lethal injection. People are like, oh, please don't let me near this. And they are near it. Jake Jakovitz is near it. Jerry Jakovitz is near it. He's at the YMCA now. Um, it's on his LinkedIn. It's public. So, um, I wonder why he moved from the VA to that. Maybe I shouldn't wonder. Um, but he's absolutely near the penalties of what he did. And that's why Leilani Hart is haunted by Richard, because she's facing terror. Richard was murdered. They don't want people to know that. Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss. And they don't want you. They spend, I don't know how many millions of dollars with this asymmetric cyber whatever they do to try to frame a narrative to get the public to not even think about it. To not even think, wait a minute. Fort Bliss is a military installation with high security. Richard Halliday is a U.S. Army soldier. How was he murdered on Fort Bliss? And they and then they disrespected his remains. Where's the security? Where's the security footage? Why did DES say, "Oh, he was just a good meal for the coyotes"? Why did Thomas Kane, the director of emergency services, say that? That things were so bad on Fort Bliss to the hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied children that now are mostly dead. And he's in business with these LLCs, with the CYS. I mean, and working at Park University. The absolute conflicts of interest and nepotism, and then on top of that, to have the court be a masquerade. And this is the main point for tonight. When you look into that court, the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, that has imposters running it, sitting on the bench in robes, and they're fake as fake can be, no authority at all. They have no authority to take the children away. They have no authority to just let rioters go. Um, no authority to make you take mental health medication, make you take a mental health test, imprison you without putting a bond there. Um, I can go, uh, research. I have to read it. I have to read it because I'm not a judge. But absolutely, they have. What are they? They targeted Richard. They falsely imprisoned him with no authority. They can take a person that has committed crimes against children and they can reduce their bail, they can dismiss the charges, they can suppress the evidence, they can change the venue, they can seal the case, they can do a gag order. They can do all kinds of stuff. And you know what? They don't have any authority to do it. So you've got a masquerading court, no authority at all, nothing that's affected. They, who knows, they can allow a child, get rid of restraining orders for. They they can absolutely, they have the power to allow the trafficking to go on. The criminal trafficking, the drug trafficking, the child trafficking, they can absolutely seal and cover and dismiss and whatever to allow the trafficking to continue to grow, for the fraud to grow, the money laundering to grow, for the criminals to even murder a soldier on Fort Bliss, to uh, because you're targeting them, you're building an atmosphere, an environment of crime, and protecting the criminals so that they're emboldened. And when they're emboldened, the crime gets worse and worse and worse and worse. The magistrate court, that criminal law magistrate court, oversees about 90% of the cases. It wasn't like that in the past. And it is absolutely a fraudulent court. These are individuals that are masquerading as criminal protectors, part of the criminal network. That's what they are. They're part of the criminal network and they need to be arrested. And yet they sit up on these benches with their robes and mess with people's lives, mess with people's property, mess with our national security. Because El Paso is the home of Fort Bliss. And whoever allowed this knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted to appoint these people and make the people of El Paso believe that it was a legitimate court. It's not a legitimate court. And they can, they don't have to answer hold on. They don't have to answer to any election. It's totally against the Texas Constitution. And they have violated Richard's civil rights. They falsely imprisoned him, and they had no authority to do so. And he's one of thousands. And it's so sad because it makes sense. Who are they going to appoint? A lot of people that the people don't want. Like a Bill Hicks, like a Justin Underwood, like a John Briggs, like a Mario Raskin Ortiz. Those that are like a Bob Moore, those that are up to no good. And there's no it is such an obvious criminal network in order to smuggle, to traffic, to launder, to commit fraud, to really descend El Paso into the depths of a criminal controlled environment that is just hell, which is a national security threat. Because it has compromised Lieutenant Colonel Roddick, platoon leader Dallas Hart, Captain David Park, Major General Clem Coward, Major General Eisenhower, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, General Michael Garrett, Command Sergeant Major Jerry Jakovitz, Sergeant Major Albert Fletcher. I can just go down the list of how many are now compromised, and it is a national security threat. Because SOPs were not being followed. There were weapons all over the barracks. Leilani Hart, a convicted criminal, was in charge of the Fort Bliss CID, raising hell at Park University where our soldiers attend, and working for Clem Coward. And she's a confirmed convicted criminal, all kinds of bad things, y'all, before Richard was even born. It's go back, look at some pictures of El Paso, and see what this court has done. It's absolutely criminal. These are imposters. They're not defenders of law and order and goodness and progression and, protectors of children. And no, these are absolutely uh, imposters masquerading to protect the criminal network. All right, everyone. Um, Thank you for coming on, and it's been really you ask, oh, I mean, I don't know. This is my response. Wow. How in the world? How in the world did this happen? And and Richard is a total hero. He is a total hero, and he had to pay with his life. He was not compromised by it. Um, and they just try to smear him when he's a hero. And he absolutely, I know on the TikTok there's this troll that wants to say that, I know this case back and forth. Really? Wow. So you have spent the thousands and thousands of hours that we did? Who the hell are you? Right? You're part of this criminal network. If you have not gotten that Richard is a whistleblower. If you do not understand, then you haven't listened to Belen Rocha. You know, um, I haven't released those. This is the thing. Some people, uh, they don't realize that we have more or things that they don't have. And we have things with Belen Rocha that they don't. And she absolutely confirms to law enforcement that Richard was blowing the whistle. And she's not the only one. Many different people, many different witnesses. There is no doubt. It's hard evidence. And it's also in the file. The file that was tampered with, the file that was sanitized, the file that was, yeah, that's not reliable. But even in that, it's in there. So, what really needs to be addressed is the tampering with witnesses. Because they had to tamper with the witnesses in the file to mislead the greater law enforcement community. And it's just totally criminal. So, but they've tampered with the court, they've tampered with the DA, they've tampered with the medical examiner, they've, it's, there is, but there you have it. There you have it. Now we need to clean it up. We need arrests. We need more reports. We need people standing up for what is right, for those that are most vulnerable, for our military institution, our service members. The orphan and the widow, and obeying the law of God. Boom. There you go. And that means we have to have justice. They have to be arrested. They cannot get away with it. It's not tolerable. And, um, I think the criticism for people that want peace and justice and people to have safety and a wonderful neighborhood where their kids can play without fear and you know they're just not tolerable. We're very tolerable, but not to crime, not to child trafficking, not to any kind of criminal trafficking, not to fraud, not to um, not to crime. So you know, because look at where it leads. So much pain. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. And we will be back tomorrow. And just know that we're doing lots of things behind the scenes. And we just appreciate all of your support, your thumbs up, your likes, your comments, your shares, anything that moves us forward. And keep your eye on El Paso because we absolutely, today, even again, communication of institutional support, of ongoing and active state and federal investigations, and they're just mounting. So, um, yeah, keep your eye on El Paso. Thank you so much. God bless. Bye bye.